34 is your podcast on YouTube. Should it be? Which is a funny title. Funny. I almost said that right. It's a funny title, given the fact that we are recording this on YouTube. Well, StreamYard to YouTube, but you know what I mean. We do this podcast essentially on YouTube. But would this podcast, Podcasters Roundtable, would it be on YouTube if it wasn't just the tool that we used to record? And I'd probably say no. Not that that's the right answer. It's just probably the reality of it. So anyways, we are going to talk about podcasting and YouTube and the whole intersection, anything that comes to mind, right? We just start one place and we go wherever we want. So we have a full table today, which is fantastic. Everyone with experience. I think all YouTubers in some way, and definitely all podcasters. So let's make the round. Sitting next to me, elbow. Oh, wait, I have to like, burp, burp. Jen, welcome to your first roundtable.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Awesome. What is your podcast?
The one I am focused on most right now is called Beauty and the Gi, and it is a podcast about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from the female perspective. So I host it with my coach, and we just talk about all things Jiu-Jitsu.
Very cool. All right. And Bandrew, welcome back.
Thank you. So I just learned I should not make Jen mad. Yeah, thank you for having me. I run a YouTube channel, Podcastage, and I run the Bandrew Says podcast.
Very cool. And also welcome back, Addy.
Hi, it's really great to be here. I'm the creator of the Podcast Planner and going to launch a daily podcast soon for the month of November called Podcasting FAQs Answered.
On fire. If it's daily, it's got to be, you got to light it on fire, right?
No thanks.
No. Okay. That's Dave. Dave Jackson, co-host. Welcome back, my friend.
Yeah, Dave Jackson, schoolofpodcasting.com.
The only one who maybe Dave doesn't do YouTube. There's too much headroom. Dave looks like his chair broke. He's sitting. This is the stuff I usually bug Dave about in the pre-show. But
how's that?
If we could just see one eyeball, that would be like you'd be the eye. Like yes, that's amazing. If
better.
You're listening to the audio only version, you're not watching us live or youtube.com/podcasters roundtable. You're missing out because Dave has a funny face and he likes to show it a lot.
That's it.
That's the reason. I got to give him some kind of view bait. I'm calling it view bait, Dave. I don't not you bait, view bait. Daniel J. Lewis, co-host. Welcome back.
With half my brain tied behind my back for no good reason. I'm Daniel J. Lewis from the Audacity to Podcast.
Yeah, see,
Which
more
is
trick
back.
to come see. Back. Oh,
Yes.
the Audacity. Yes, it is back. You're right. Check your feeds or subscribe or smash that like button.
Or check your YouTubes.
Well, all right. Cool. So let me see. I've got some notes here. Let's start talking about this. I said this podcast wouldn't be on YouTube. That YouTube is, we used to use Google Hangouts on Air, which was its own thing. Then it went to YouTube. That's how we live stream. That's how we're doing 6 people remotely. Super simple. I'm now using StreamYard since they killed Google Hangouts on Air. But StreamYard's been really cool. And it just makes it super simple. And so that's how we record because it's the best way to bring in people video remotely. And also it goes right to YouTube. But I record the audio here. That gets put into an audio only podcast feed. And, you know, definitely the audio podcast will get more listens than we'll get views on the video. But that doesn't mean the video doesn't get viewed. And of course, we're live. So it's like all these things being handled at once. But would I put this on YouTube? Certainly not as a video. I probably wouldn't video this if we were just connecting via like a Skype or Zencaster or some other remote recording system. I wouldn't then put it on YouTube. And partly because I'm lazy, and partly because this is what it, whatever it takes to get this show out is like, that's all it needs to be. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't do it easily. I do host on Libsyn. Dave might fill us in on what that would require. But, who thinks, well, I guess first I should say, who here has a audio only podcast that's on YouTube? Anyone? Jen does. And Addy does. Really? Okay. Well, Jen, tell us why you do that, or why you started doing that. I'm assuming you didn't do that in the beginning.
No, we did not. So for the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, it only made sense to put it on YouTube just because that's where people go to see jiu-jitsu videos, especially like the how-to videos, how to choke somebody, how to do an arm bar, how to do all of those fun things. So our people are there. So it just makes sense for us to be there. We don't have a huge following yet. Nothing like the Joe Rogans of the world.
But it's audio only, right? So it's like
right.
a thumbnail. So would you expect to get a large following for that? Are you hoping?
No, I really don't think that we will get a large following on YouTube. I put it there because I host with Libsyn. It's super easy to publish it there. And I know that our audience is hanging out there. So why wouldn't we be there? Hopefully just to get discovered. Somebody's looking for a video, we come up, and then they find the podcast. Oh, hey, we should go check this podcast out, and then subscribe to it in Apple Podcast or Spotify or whatever.
Do you know of people making that jump? Do you ask people if they come over? Is that call to action up front? Like what's the move there to get people? Because it sounds like you do want people to move over, or do you care?
If they move over, it's great. We don't specifically have a call to action. I mean, other than, hey, subscribe in Apple Podcast or whatever. At the end of the podcast, we don't have anything specifically for YouTube, but in the description, I've got all of the links up at the top if they want to subscribe in Apple or Google.
But the YouTube audience, do you find that being your audience going to YouTube? Are you getting new people on YouTube? And do you try to move that YouTube audience over to the audio podcast?
The goal would definitely be to move them to the audio podcast.
Why though? I mean, why do you want to move them there if they're if they're listening?
I guess because I just want to make sure that they are subscribed so that they are getting. I mean, they may subscribe to my YouTube channel. Who knows? But ultimately, hopefully they're subscribing in Apple Podcast or Spotify or Google Podcast, one of those places.
Cool. Addy, the same reasons, or how did you start off putting your audio only podcast on YouTube? Why did that happen?
So for the companion podcast, which is formerly known as the Podcast Planner podcast, I just wanted, knowing that my audience is techie or they're doing some Google searches on podcasting, I just went ahead and syndicated over my podcast audio to YouTube, my YouTube channel. And then I would go over there and just update the cover because it's all about thumbnails over there, just to test to see what kind of interaction I would get. And in addition to that, I had a presentation for NAB last year, and I took that presentation, re-recorded it here on my computer, and then submitted that to my YouTube channel to test, like, what would the engagement look like? What would that traction look like? And putting not only or looking at YouTube's analytics, but I also used my own call to action to go over to my website to download a PDF that they would get with that course. And again, you have to know who your audience is. So in doing that, I learned that the educational format of me doing a presentation with slides and talking over them, that did outperform just syndicating the audio over. But it's not to say that I've seen that traffic move from YouTube to my website, which I'm able to see those analytics through my Squarespace website.
Cool. It's so funny because I actually almost threw my hands up in the air last night and went and got a Squarespace website just for my personal site to make it super easy. And it was so ironic because I couldn't use their website to find what I wanted for my website. It's very annoying, but no shade, Squarespace. Okay, a little shade, yeah. Guys need to fix your browsing, but anyways, unrelated. You guys should check it out. Promo code. No, we don't have one of those. We're not sponsored. Daniel, you didn't, I guess, I feel like there was a point where you held a position that you shouldn't put your audio podcast over there. I did read something, and I don't know if it's from the same post, it's the old post, I read it today, about why YouTube can be a good distribution point. But do you think audio podcasts don't belong on YouTube?
Yes, I still hold that. There is an exception to that, but I do still advise against uploading what I call fake videos over there to YouTube.
Okay. And why? First of all, what's a fake video?
Well, keep this in mind. And what I'm saying is, if you ever want your YouTube channel to succeed, build an audience, engage your audience, and such, my opinion is don't use it for fake video. Use it for real video. If you're going to do fake video, put it on a completely separate channel and never expect much from that channel. So what I do is I upload actual videos to YouTube, and it's a completely separate amount of content and kind of content from what I do in my normal audio podcast. I don't do the fake videos. I've done some tests in the past of using fake videos and seeing, the big view numbers, but then seeing the huge drop off that after the first 90 seconds, almost all of the audience is gone. And 5 minutes in, it's only a few people still watching from tens of thousands of initial views. So I just don't see much benefit to it.
But you just said tens of thousands of people all of a sudden knew who you were and that you had a podcast, even if they didn't listen. My question is, do stats matter? Like, does it matter that they're not listening on some level?
Can I jump in here?
Spirit. That's the spirit. It's about time. It's why you were brought on the show. Earn your money here.
Stats do matter, especially watch time on YouTube. That is what they are looking at right now.
It matters to YouTube, but does it matter to your podcast is my question.
If you want your channel to continue to grow, yes. If you're just putting it on a channel that you don't upload anything else to, as Daniel is saying, you don't care about, you don't expect much from, more power to you. Upload to your heart's content. But
if it's automated, then why not do it as long as you don't expect anything from it?
But it's like that Chris Rock joke. What have you done for me lately? That's what you as a YouTuber are to YouTube, to Google. They only look at your latest video to determine what they're going to do with your next upload. If your last video stinks, your next video is not going to get pushed to as many people. If your last video does great, they're going to push the next one to more people. You're going to get more potential for discoverability. So that is why I think it's really important to determine what you want your channel to be prior to saying, okay, I'll upload a 5-minute tutorial here, then a 1-hour fake video. Completely different audiences. You will have completely different completion rates from your viewers. So YouTube won't know what to do with the videos you're uploading. They won't know if people like them, hate them, or if they should push them at all.
So you have experience with this, because didn't you try to mix these formats at one point on your channel, and then now you've broken that out?
Yeah, it's slightly different. This is more inside YouTube, where variety channels don't really do well. I was doing 5-10-minute reviews and then uploading a 45-minute podcast about general tech, and people didn't care about that.
I watched it. I like the interviews even more.
People hated those. Those were my lowest viewed videos. So, but those being on the same channel as 5-minute reviews, the audience didn't know what to expect. So they would watch the 5-10-minute reviews and then see an hour-long video and say, okay, I'm not going to watch that. So YouTube thinks that people have lost interest in my channel. So now I have to reprove myself to them to get them to, I guess, give me those impressions back for future uploads.
You moved your audio podcast, but it's recorded in video, like talking head, right? You moved it to its own channel.
Yeah. So length is also important. That's why you see a lot of people uploading podcasts to YouTube in full, and then they have separate clips channels, because clips are a lot more searchable on YouTube. If you cover 10 topics in an episode and somebody's searching for a 30-second answer, they're going to skip right past your hour-long video. That's why people do clips on YouTube as well.
Did you see improvement for your podcast when you put it on its own channel, or is that not the goal? No,
I didn't.
Why did you do it?
Why did I do it?
Why do you do it? Why do you continue if you saw nothing really come of it?
Because I enjoy it.
Okay.
I enjoy making the video podcast. It's fun. It's a pain in the butt, but I really enjoy doing it. And
Do you release it as a video podcast or audio only podcast?
both.
Wow. Where do you host your video?
Oh, so that is on a separate YouTube channel.
Oh, but
So
you don't.
are you arguing, or the semantic argument? Does it have an RSS feed so the video isn't actually a podcast?
No, we're not going to go there. But but I am legit asking you, can I get your video podcast in Apple? So in what I'm asking.
No.
Okay, so you don't have a video podcast, but again, we're not going to go there.
Okay. Yeah, I have an audio podcast that
Okay.
also has a video component that is uploaded to YouTube that has the exact same content as the audio podcast. But since it doesn't have an RSS, it's not a video podcast.
All right, have you
Yeah.
found, or are you watching or paying attention to, do you find people moving from YouTube to your audio only podcast?
No. Conversion from YouTube is one of the most difficult things I have ever tried to do. I can't get almost anybody from my review channel, which has 120,000 subs. I can't get them to subscribe to my actual podcast.
But I get that because they didn't want to listen to the podcast in the first, like, you know what I mean? But I mean your audio only podcast. Like, are you moving them to a subscription audio? You know what I mean? For people who are consuming, or do you? That's what I'm curious about.
At the beginning of every episode, I do plug a URL that goes to the Libsyn page. Libsyn, awesome, Dave. And
why do you do that? Don't send them to Libsyn.
Because I don't want to have to pay for another $200 a year to have another Squarespace site.
What? You have a website already. What are you talking about?
I have so many websites already.
Okay. But send them to Bandrew Says, right? Isn't that the same podcast?
That's the Libsyn site.
Okay, that's fine. It's a page. You're not just sending them to like a Libsyn. Okay, that's fine. Dave, that's fine. Right, I apologize.
So I give them the option, but
gotcha.
I don't measure the conversion.
Gotcha. All right. So in my question about do stats matter, because I think that the valid reason, like as Jen mentioned, that discovery is that word. People finding you who wouldn't have found you in the first place may be the only thing that matters in this case. It may be the reason to put a audio podcast on YouTube, especially a fake video type podcast where people, the retention rates are abysmal. They're terrible, right? But that person found it and they were interested enough to click on it. So at least it's now on their radar, maybe. I mean, maybe 1% of the 1,000 people that found you go over to your audio podcast, right? Like, who wouldn't have done that before because they were searching on YouTube only, not Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. There is an audience that's out there that they go to their browser, type in YouTube, look for a subject, and whether they're working on something, they just want to hear the audio in the background. So it all comes down to one of the golden rules of all content, right? Knowing who your audience is, and then looking at your analytics to see if that's what's translating. Maybe you have a topic or a subject on the show that audience, that's where they go. That's one of their major search engines. Everybody, and I've seen it from my experience, both in my family and just out there in the world at random, people know to click on that red button on their screen and then search for something. And a lot of the times the video is playing and they're just listening to it. And I just came back from a YouTube conference. And one of the major things is I really wish that I can just lock my screen and keep listening to some of this content that's on YouTube.
Pay for it, right? Or, right? That's the red or the pro
YouTube premium, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I think from what I've observed, it comes down to having to know who your audience is. There is an audience that definitely does like to listen just to the audio. But that's the golden rule is if you know who your audience is and you're catering to them, or on the flip side, you have strong call to actions saying or asking them, hey, if you're watching this video and listening on YouTube, head over to my links over here to subscribe to the audio podcast on the platform that you wish.
Addy, would you say that most of the consumption that you're saying people search for YouTube or search something on YouTube and then consume it sometimes in the background, would you say that's usually single topic focused or publisher content creator focused?
It's a little bit of both. Yeah. It just comes down to the content of what's being shared. There's the very niche stuff. It's very similar to podcasting. There's niche stuff that people are really captivated by. And then there's the personalities, which I think it's another huge topic that it's no longer about the platform. It's about attending to what your audience is asking of you. If they search for your content on XYZ platform, then it's great to just have your show available on that platform as well. In the end, audiences are going for you, for the content, for the stories. They're attracted more than ever following the pursuit of the content at whatever platform that is.
I just recently, or like yesterday, discovered a new YouTuber. That, the beauty of YouTube, isn't it amazing? Isn't it so much fun? It is for me, discovering like a new YouTuber and then realizing, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff here. And like, I don't know, it's like finding the next great book, except the book doesn't end. You're just like, unless the YouTuber stops, obviously. But I found this guy, Harris Heller, Alpha Gaming on YouTube. He's all about like live streaming and stuff. And he had a video that about basically how do you grow on Twitch. Apparently Twitch has like 0 ways to find. We think podcasting's bad with discovery. Twitch is apparently the king and queen of this problem, because they literally have like no browsing feature, no featured feature. They have nothing. Like you can just stream on Twitch and no one ever knows you're there. They have to like somehow know you're on Twitch. So I know nothing about Twitch. I haven't been there enough. Bandrew probably knows more. But basically he says, because it's a platform that completely lacks any browsing or suggestion features, that you have to create content. His message, or his way of growing a Twitch channel, is to create content on other platforms, and then basically you will then move them over to Twitch, right? So he started creating. He streamed for years on Twitch and had like 1 viewer, like nobody, and he had the best high quality stream. He's really good at streaming, and so then he realized, I'll make some tutorials on YouTube, grew an audience, and now makes a career on Twitch. And so, his idea about, kind of applied to made me think of podcasting. For me, it's kind of how I use YouTube. My YouTube channel relates to my podcast. It's not why I started a YouTube channel, and I'm talking about a different channel here, sort of the Podcaster Studio. And people find this one too. It's, oh, you know what? Now I'm having a recall here. A recall? You said that? I said that like it was a fine wine. A recall. Terrible. This Podcasters Roundtable used to be on my primary channel, which has like a decent amount of subscribers. And that is similar to Bandrew in that it's reviews basically of gear, tutorials, stuff like that. And I broke it out. I think Daniel's urging me to get its own channel or something. We had no way to reference it. So it's just how we started. But I broke it out to its own channel. So it's just this. But I found this, so many people, I didn't want to take it away, because so many people discovered I had a podcast, the Roundtable, through those videos. But when a Roundtable would come out, I'd get as many subscriptions as I would get unsubscribes. So like it was this crazy thing where, anyways, so people were finding it. They were finding the podcast because of the channel, but it was also hurting that channel. But people I put one question on my email list, and it says, how did you find this podcast? And an amazing number of people say YouTube. And that is and that is for my review channel, where I don't even mention the podcast. That's because they dig deeper into who you are. They're like, I like the way this person's presenting content, and they go further and they're like, oh, he has a podcast. And then they sign up to the email list. I mean, that's a super engaged person to go through all those steps. But, so does anyone using YouTube to sort of enhance their podcast? Dave, how are you using YouTube, if at all?
I just started about a month and a half ago. I'm taking Tim Schmoyer's Video Labs course, whatever.
Yeah, good channel.
And what I'm doing is just like the one for this week is I took what I did in about 20 minutes on my podcast and scrunched it down to about 5 minutes. It's like, hey, this week on the podcast, I talked about this. And then it was like quick bullet points for more information. If you want a deeper dive, go over there. So that way it's not just hey, I did a thing, it's over there. It's like, I still have to deliver value. I got you looking at me now. I have to deliver value. So I give a couple bullet points and I go from there. I'm trying to do one a week. It's one of those things that You're like, 1 week isn't that bad, but it's just a matter of lights, camera, action. Now I have to bathe. It's just a hassle.
Did we get smell vision through YouTube?
Not yet.
Why do you have to? You don't really have to.
2020. That's what I hear.
All right. I'm hoping.
So that's what I'm doing. I used to have what Daniel's calling fake videos. And then when I kind of decided, hey, I might actually want to do something with my YouTube channel. And even that is a mess because I have 5 little clips and then I have hour-long podcast reviews, and then I'll have an hour-long Ask the Podcast Coach. So it is a bit of a hodgepodge already. It's a bit of a hot mess. So I was like, all right, let's take one of the ingredients of the fake videos and get them out of here. At least have talking head stuff.
So one of the relating to your bathing issue, Andrew from the Motoring podcast, he said, he said this on Twitter before we started. We used to have our show on YouTube, but for the small number of views they would get compared to the effort to edit and post, they stopped. So, there's that's kind of this middle ground between like doing something that's original on YouTube and then like sort of pointing to your podcast. And then there's audio that you just let Libsyn upload with a thumbnail. And then there's recording essentially a video podcast and then editing that and putting it on YouTube. That's a lot of work. Which of those do you think? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Like, is anyone doing so much more work that, I told you this wouldn't be on here because it would be extra work. I could do the audio only thing to YouTube through Libsyn. I guess they just upload it as an MP4, right? And then stick a label
we
on
basically convert it and then throw it on to YouTube for you. And then you can upload a wide image that'll be used on YouTube. So it's not just the square thing with a big black rectangle around it.
So Libsyn obviously thinks that YouTube is a distribution platform for podcasts if they created that.
Yeah, it's the number 2 search engine, and kind of like what Daniel was saying. You can do that. My thought is I probably should make a new channel for it for just my fake videos and do that because A, it's free. B, it doesn't cost me any time. It costs me about a couple minutes to set it up, and then from there. And then the nice thing about that strategy is I can see what it actually does, if anything. So it would be really easy to see, is this worth the 4 minutes it took to set up? If I go over and say, wow, I'm getting, 50 downloads. And that's where Daniel has the point though. Let's say I get 100 listens on there. I still need to go in and see how far are they listening. Cause I know on Facebook, if you get to a minute on Facebook, you are a god because nobody's watching anything long form on Facebook.
But it goes back to my do stats matter question in that using it, I think most podcasters, the most valid reason is this discovery, is this browsing, is this stumble upon feature, or sort of benefit of doing it. Like, doesn't matter if, that one got 5 views, but you don't know if that person turned into a subscriber. You don't know if it was someone who never knew you existed before. They don't even maybe listen to podcasts, but now they do. But Bandrew, I'm curious if we do have a channel that performs really poorly. So people click and then they take off, right? The retention sucks. Are people even going to discover it if the channel just sucks in the first place? If we're very specific and use keywords, will they find it if they're searching for that exact thing? Or YouTube's going to say, don't show this to anybody?
I think through search, you can still show up. But the entire benefit of being on YouTube is the potential for their algorithm to say, hey, this is really cool. Let's put it on the front page, or let's recommend it in an up next video. You upload to YouTube because you want that reach that other platforms really lack right now. They don't have that.
I feel like though, also when people are new to hearing this idea, hey, you should put your podcast on YouTube. I fear that they think this is the thing. This is what's going to do it. Man, I'm finally going to make it. People are finally going to find my podcast and I'm going to have a ton of listens. Like Dave's initial, his basic premise of everything. Like if it sucks, right? Like they're not going to, you got to give the value. Like if your show sucks and that you got to be honest either with yourself or someone needs to be honest with you, it doesn't matter.
Even if it's good though, you need to understand what the typical YouTube viewer is expecting. they're expecting a video. So if they click on a really cool thumbnail that you make for your audio podcast, and then they see in 30 seconds, well, there's no video. Why am I going to keep watching this? There's
Is it
20
worth it? So 5 people hate you, but one person says, I found a new podcast. Isn't that worth it?
I suppose so, yeah.
I think it's worth it if that's a decision you have to make. Is the amount of effort you're putting into it worth the return you're getting back? If it's completely automated, you set it up, you spend a few minutes, you set it up, and you pick up 3 new listeners. Maybe that's worth it. Or fake viewers? No, they're not fake people. So they're real people listening to fake. We'll figure out a term later.
That's the real question then. Like, is there any downside to having your let's deal with audio podcast. Let's deal with fake video, because creating video is a different. I mean, we're creating video right now, and like I said, it's because it's easy. But Jen, do you think there's any downside to doing essentially what you're doing with Libsyn?
I think if your goal is to grow a YouTube channel and get monetization through videos and having them really serve up your content, then I can definitely see where putting just, your fake video, audio podcast on there is going to detract from that. So I think it ultimately just goes back to that. What do you want that YouTube channel to do? And what are your expectations for it? For me, it is pretty much just discoverability. I'm going to keep publishing there because it's easy.
I think I was listening. You did an episode on this really recently, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if I got this from your guest or not, but let me float this one out there and just discuss amongst yourselves. YouTube to grow your podcast versus podcasts to grow your YouTube. And I think someone was saying that, if you're starting a YouTube channel and putting podcasts on there to grow your YouTube channel, it's probably not
Right.
the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But vice versa might be okay. Podcasts are YouTube to grow your podcast.
That's how I look at it.
Let me share some stats from what I do with YouTube. So to set the premise here, I use YouTube to, hey, get this, host videos, real videos.
You're crazy.
I know. That's what my therapist said too, when I told him the same thing. But so I host these actual videos. For example, at Podcast Movement 2019, I've been wanting to do this for years. Finally, I did it this year. Is I took a camera, a light, microphone, and such to Podcast Movement 2019, and I interviewed different vendors who had something new or interesting to show at Podcast Movement. So I have all of these videos. There's not a whole lot to see because I had to keep the setup simple. I've done more advanced videos in the past with multiple cameras and such, but here you just usually see the product, but you see the person talking, you get to see their expressions. Sometimes they're holding a product in front of them, so you kind of get to see it a little bit. It's not a deep review thing, but these are short videos, 4 or 5 minutes. A couple of them are a little bit longer, some shorter. I publish these videos both on YouTube, and I host them as a video podcast that you can subscribe to in Apple Podcasts and other podcast apps that support video. So
who are you hosting to do that? I keep asking this question because it's super expensive to do this with video.
Well, because the videos aren't downloaded all that much, I had no problem increasing the resolution of the videos to 720p. I previously was concerned about the bandwidth. So but because the numbers are so small, I actually increased the bandwidth, and I'm just using a standard CDN that I pay for. And then I layer my Blueberry stats over that, Blueberry premium stats.
Are you hosting a podcast on your own website?
No. A CDN. The one in particular that I'm using is Bunny CDN.
Thought I got him. You wanted that code written. No, I don't know the line.
But so I get to see these stats between.
Leave me on that wall. Sorry.
It's the same content, exact same videos in both the podcast video channel and the YouTube channel. And I embed the videos from YouTube on my site. So if you visit any of the links that I mentioned in the podcast, the player that displays on the site is the video player for YouTube, not the podcast video player from my CDN.
I'm going to derail this and ask you, is there added value to putting an audio podcast on YouTube so that you can embed a YouTube video, air quotes, on your website and benefit from some kind of extra Google juice that Google's given you for putting basically like a link back or whatever?
That's an interesting question, but let me finish this thought.
All right. Don't just, I would forget. So make sure you come back to that.
So the stats between these, my YouTube channel has, I think, 6,000 subscribers. Don't be impressed by that, please, because the views on these videos, so you can binge on these videos. I published a bunch over a week. On YouTube, the lowest count is 79 from these videos, and these were all published at the end of September. And the highest count looks like 162, I believe. And those are my, just looking at the raw views. I haven't dug into retention yet. Now, looking at my Blueberry stats for the podcast videos, exact same content, a little less accessible. The podcast videos are all around the same number, which is higher than the lowest number on YouTube. The podcast videos are all about 90, somewhere around 90. The lowest one, 79, but most of them are in the 90s.
What's the takeaway?
So the takeaway here is I'm getting more consistent results from the podcast, which makes sense. I think I probably have 90 subscribers to the video podcast and probably using Apple Podcasts. I haven't gone deep into those stats, but it's consistent. The bottom floor, the threshold is higher for the videos and they're still being downloaded. And the threshold for the video podcast, that's what I was just referring to. The threshold for the YouTube is lower. So the point I'm trying to make, I just realized that I've made this way more complicated than it needs to be.
It was just basically a long promo for your channel. I get it. We expect this once around.
Sponsored by.
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make is I get predictable, consistent results with my video podcast that I don't get with my video channel on YouTube. I know how many I'm going to get downloaded.
This is because which is something I've always said is that like podcast subscribers are very, very different than YouTube subscribers. Very different. In fact, I think people use the subscribe button on YouTube as a like button. They don't come back unless you're like a personality vlogger who like does daily stuff. Which Addy's going to do. She's going to put daily videos. So we're looking forward to that. No, she's not. I'm going to set you up. You might have 100,000 subs on. So I have 60,000 something subs, right? Bandrew's still the winner here. In fact, where's the YouTube button back there, buddy? All right. Oh, he's got it. Hold it up like a trophy over your head.
Ooh, very nice.
Oh, it's in a buy. Well, so, and I have 2,000 subs in a podcast, maybe this podcast. And, I can count on a certain amount of downloads. Whereas on YouTube, I'm recreating my audience every time. Maybe not here because this is the same thing. So you sub for one reason only. But YouTube, you kind of have to recreate your audience a lot of times through search. Unless you are like a family channel, some people are coming back through them. A podcast tends to be more sticky. And Daniel, in your situation, it's more likely that it was easier for you to move your current podcast audience, audio only, over to a video podcast subscribe than it is, which Bandrew indicated, moving YouTube viewers off that platform to a completely different platform that they might not even use, right? So it makes sense. And I think, Dave, maybe that's kind of what you might have been going at when you said it was making sense.
Yeah, I just think, and you wrapped it up. I think a podcast subscriber and a YouTube subscriber are two different things. People that says subscribe is because I want this content, doggone it, I can't wait for another episode. Where YouTube, they're like, yeah, this guy seems okay, subscribe, and then you never hear from them again. And it's not like they're going back the next day going, where's the new content? They might be, but I know I was surprised at how many people I've subscribed to and completely forgot about their channel. I was going around the other day and I'm like, oh yeah, that guy, the Todoist guy. I haven't watched his stuff in about, it looks like 3 years. So I think there's probably more of that on the YouTube side than on
the podcast side. To that though, how many podcasts do you have in your podcatcher, your app, that you don't listen to? I listen to like one podcast out of the 12 that are in my podcast app, and I've trimmed that down, right?
I have 257 episodes
Yep.
waiting for
Mhm.
me as we speak. So yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
It's almost as many domains as he has. Right?
I have 348.
Doing good.
But
Doing good.
Sold.
I plan to listen to every one of these.
Oh, sure.
episodes.
I plan to answer all my emails and check all the tabs I have open in Chrome too. I plan to do. So, okay, what else? When we think about podcasts and YouTube, Addy, you said you just came back from a YouTube conference. Was there interest in podcasts? Like, were you there because of your work with Simplecast? Am I allowed to say that? Because I just did. It's baked in now. No, she's out there in the community doing something. Which, congrats. I think Daniel just tweeted you guys got IAB certified. Like, that's really cool. Congrats.
Yeah.
Were you seeing an interest in podcasts? Were you there to represent podcasts or just there to check out YouTube stuff?
Yeah, on behalf of Simplecast, we had a booth there promoting the company and podcasting. Primarily, we like to always give education first, then the product, just after that. And there was huge interest in that. And in addition to that, the company is working closely with YouTube and Google to encourage creators of both mediums to use both mediums to complement their content because of the movement of how passionate these audiences are when it comes to the content that they're consuming. Let's take Game of Thrones, for example. People are fanatics about that show and wanted to go wherever those celebrities were, Instagram, YouTube, any chance. So while I was at this conference, it was very hard to take a break because everybody's just interested. Like, I keep hearing about podcasting. How can I use podcasting in addition to everything that I'm doing for YouTube? Because, video is a heavy lifter depending on the show that you produce. But for the most part, video is always going to require more of your efforts than it is in audio. So their main question was, how can I add podcasting seamlessly, or whatever the word is, to complement content and bounce those audience off of each other? And there's some pretty successful YouTubers doing that, like Sarah Dici. She has a very popular YouTube channel. She's doing really well. Her podcast is not just an audio version of that. It's complementing her brand.
So I saw there was sort of spurred on this round. The Verge had an article about podcasting in YouTube or something, and the big difference there was, kind of that, like, people are going to YouTube to find podcasts, but the big deal, and we really saw this over like the last year, big YouTubers discovered podcasting, and they all started a podcast. They're still doing it, right? Casey Neistat, MKBHD, like, you name it, right? These are, you can see the people I follow by what I say out loud. But Bandrew, no, he already had a podcast. But but this article, everyone, Joe Rogan, Logan Paul, like these big H3, how successful they are on the platform. And they're sort of like breaking up long content to put it in and having like 3 channels and making clips. And it's all about discoverability. But all these, the difference was, it was not podcasters going to YouTube. It was YouTubers getting into podcasts. They had huge audiences. They all did video already. So it felt a little misleading. Like, you have a podcast and you put it on YouTube, boom, that's the answer. There's the explosion you're looking for. Not the case so much. And like I said, none of these were examples of audio only shows going to YouTube. But
plus,
say
their podcasts, in quotation marks around that, were only available on YouTube and not subscribable in a podcast app.
Right. That got me into another very actually, it got me a viral tweet, which has not stopped. I had to turn notifications off on my phone. It's ridiculous. You know why? It's because a big YouTuber retweeted it. And if that's ever happened to you, oh my gosh, I almost don't want it to happen because I can't use my phone. No, it wasn't Bandrew. He wouldn't retweet anything I say. Are you kidding me? All shade. Tea, as the kids say. But yes. Daniel, whatever your point was, yes. I forgot. What did you say?
Just clarifying. So we know that when we're talking about podcasts on YouTube, that it's a show on YouTube, distributed through YouTube.
Right. And this is another distribution point that podcasters might not have thought about in the past. Obviously, Libsyn has a destination, which means it's just another place to put your podcast. You are not going to then get them. You are going to get a different type of result, right? If they're on YouTube, they're going to subscribe. Unless you use the app and unless you ring that bell and smash that like button, like unless you do that stuff, it's not like a podcast where I feel like podcast people work into their lives, right? We talk about that, but you are more used to this comes out on Monday. I commute on Monday. And this is when I listen to this podcast. Whereas YouTube, for me, I watch YouTube every day, but it's all discovery for me. In fact, I never even go to my subscription tab because the browse tab does such an incredible job of constantly putting new people in front of me. It blows me away. I wish podcasts could do this.
I think that's exactly why podcasts or podcast listeners are more committed, because on YouTube, the subscription has been completely devalued. They don't put your videos in front of your subscribers unless they jump through 10 hoops while they're on fire and eating a piece of pizza. They won't do it. But on podcasts, hit subscribe. It's right on your phone. So there's a huge difference there. And I quick other side note, I think that we will see more YouTubers moving to podcasts, because then they essentially own the distribution of their content. And in many cases, they're not going to be deplatformed. There's a lot of political commentators on YouTube who are saying, oh my God, I am going to release this stuff on an RSS feed that you can subscribe to and get it on your phone every day, because I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow on YouTube.
Yeah, there's a big difference. And that's kind of what my tweet was about. And if you're in an RSS feed, someone essentially can't take it away from you, right? They can't take your audience. So Bandrew's got 199 million subscribers. And if YouTube says, hey, guess what, dude? That affiliate link doesn't comply or whatever, some stupid reason, which they might not even tell him why, Dave, Amazon, whatever.
Right.
And you're gone. Like, you instantly can't talk to your audience. In an RSS feed, if Apple takes you out, guess what? Put something in the RSS feed, you're still going to talk to all those subscribers. That's a huge difference. Now, obviously, I tried not to go down this. We're not going to go there, because I need to bring on Cridlin, James from I'm blanking.
Pod News.
Pod News. I was going to say Pod News. Anyways, that's a different debate, but it's an important thing that it's not about. Listeners don't need to understand this. I don't care if listeners call my podcast, whatever.
The Big Orange Crush.
Yeah, whatever. Toast. Call it toast. I listen to whatever. Like, they don't need to know it's a podcast. But producers, and like Bandrew saying, people are discovering, oh, I can have an RSS feed and not lose my audience. It's important distinction for a producer, for a content creator, for a podcaster. So these YouTubers coming to podcasts, maybe we're the gold rush, buddies. We're the gold rush. He says on YouTube.
Well, I know. Curious. I know you get a lot less activity depending on the scenario. I have people still arguing. I put out a thing on YouTube about here are the logical reasons why I don't like Anchor. I said, look, I will admit straight up front, I work for the competition, but let's take that out of here. Here's why, and here's what this does, and this is why this is bad. And people are still arguing on my YouTube channel about that. Like, oh, you're just a stupid shill, blah, blah, blah. You suck. And I'm like, whatever, next, I'd said it on my podcast and people are like, yeah, that seems like he has a pretty good point.
Isn't that good though?
You're officially a YouTuber.
Yeah.
You're officially, welcome to the club, Dave. The trolls have come. But hey, so Bandrew, which you're the first person to do this, and I think it's great. And so when I started watching Bandrew, I was like, this dude's telling me that if I didn't like this video, give it a thumbs down. No one tells you to give it a thumbs down. But then I thought, maybe I got it from your channel. Didn't you say that YouTube, that thumbs down's not actually necessarily bad, right? Like, it shows engagement, right? So those people making all those comments on your YouTube channel, even though they suck, is probably a good thing. Like, you want that you did something to stoke engagement.
Right.
Why do you think outrage content is so viral?
Podcasting is dead.
There you go. There's a video for next week.
It's the what is the new hobby of all Americans? Recreational outrage.
That's a Leo.
The Outrage Olympics.
Consider this as an example. One of the songs that made a teenager famous several years ago, Rebecca Black's Friday, 1 million likes, 3.5 million dislikes.
Poor girl.
We don't have an alternate universe machine to be able to really do an effective split test on it. But so you could say, well, what if those numbers were reversed? Would she be even more popular, or would the video have even more views than it currently does? So you can't say, well, just because these things correlate, that causes it. So I have to give that acknowledgement. I'm working on my parallel universe split testing machine, but I've got some kinks to work out.
Very cool. What else do we need to think about here? Any other thoughts come about?
One of the things I'm curious how others here are, and I haven't studied this much with listeners and audience members. For me, when I am listening to an audio podcast and they say they have a video, I might be interested to check it out, but I keep putting it off because that requires so much more attention. That's one aspect of this for me. The other aspect is when I'm watching a video, someone I enjoy watching their videos, subscribing to. For example, Rhett and Link is a channel I've been a big fan of for a while. And Studio C, another channel I've been a big fan of. I don't know about with Studio C, but at least with Rhett and Link, they launched an audio podcast also, long after they had their video channels set.
I subscribed and stopped listening.
And I subscribed and stopped listening too. But the reason I subscribed is because I wanted to be able to take their personalities with me and listen when I was doing other things. I'm not so inclined to go the other way, go from audio to video, but going from video to audio is very easy. And so I feel like that might be an easier direction for an audience, is to take them from your video content to your audio content. But from the perspective of consumers, watchers, and listeners, how do you guys and gals feel about that?
I talk too much. Actually, it's in the comments. I talk too much, so I'm going to let someone else go in. I guarantee it. Ray talks too much.
I know for me,
show.
I spit it out, Dave. With Joe Rogan, I listen based on who the guest is, and I will actually see it on my phone, on my podcast, and I will go to YouTube to watch it because Joe doesn't have 7 minutes of video of commercials on YouTube.
You know what Joe does have?
What?
Nobody watches his channel. You know why? Because everyone steals it. Any clip I think I've ever seen of that podcast has been on someone's channel. Like, this is an issue, but is it an issue? Because more people are just sharing like your stuff.
That's how most music was on YouTube years ago, when people started going to YouTube to listen to music because people were illegally sharing it there.
Well, there's some music you can't get. There's a band, I'm going to totally date myself, from the 80s called EZO, produced by Gene Simmons. You cannot get that CD anywhere. You can't find it on Spotify. Can't find it anywhere. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that's still, I'm like, hey, that's illegal, but I can listen to it. Yay.
Well, YouTube, I mean, that's now big. That's a huge vertical, to use ugly marketing terms, for YouTube. Like, music is, they started a whole, now isn't there YouTube music? It's its own thing.
They have a new thing every single week. Who knows?
Are they going to become podcast hosts? Is that the question? Or
shut your mouth.
I don't think so.
Just get a new job, Dave.
Because they wouldn't own it. It would be much more difficult for them to serve dynamic. I guess there is dynamic ad insertion, isn't there, for podcasts? So they could do that.
Yeah. They had a thing for a while where it was audio. You could buy audio ads from Google to run on the radio or something. This was like probably 10 years ago.
Google kills everything. So if they get into hosting and it's free, like YouTube, video is super expensive. YouTube took a bath on video for years. It was like lost money. I mean, Dave, are there conversations at Libsyn? Does Libsyn worry about YouTube getting into podcast hosting?
That would be an interesting conversation. I don't know that I'm privy to those conversations. I'm in Ohio. They're in Pittsburgh, and
an email.
That would be a Rob's. You need Rob Squared and Lori.
Rob Squared. That's right.
Yeah.
Too many Robs. Yeah.
Those are the guys that are talking about that.
Oh, man.
But that would be a game changer. It would be interesting. I'll be interested to see what happens to Anchor in like 5 years, because they're still probably losing money. I don't want to change the subject and get us on my favorite topic, but
in addition to the competition that Google often kills, don't forget how many of their own products they often kill.
yeah.
That's the problem. Hello, Google Hangouts on air. Bye-bye, Podcasters
Well,
Roundtable.
Bulletin, they just killed, I think it was called Bulletin. It was supposed to be a local blogging platform, and David Hooper had one because they released in Oakland and Nashville. And so Dave built a bunch of stuff on this platform, and they just went, never mind.
That goes back to not building on third parties, right? You build for those massive YouTubers who built only on YouTube. You know, this is Schmoyer's big thing. I don't know if you got that to that part of the course, Dave, but it's about moving that audience to the list, right?
Yeah.
Like, which is important. Like, if YouTube, this happens all the time. People just taking off YouTube. They're just gone. Your audience just thinks you quit. You know, you can't even tell them, hey, we're fine. I mean, like, it's an issue.
I was at a conference last weekend, and Joe Polisi, I think is his last name, the guy behind Content Marketing World, said on Facebook, you get like 1% of your audience will actually see your stuff.
Facebook's the worst.
And he was just, and every event I go to, when I was at the Military Influencer Conference, they're all saying the same thing, and it's back, baby, and that is our good friend email. They're like, yeah, we wish that we had better open rates and things like that, but in the end, comparing email to social, it's like it's email hands down. So don't get too hung up on your Instagram and, you know, the TikToks and, you know, face chat. And
Dave, when is the School of Podcasting going to be set as a destination in your Lipton dashboard?
That'd be great. I'm just waiting for them to write a check.
Don't you have to put your money? Don't you have to eat the money or something? What's the saying? Like, you have to put your money where the mouth is. Like, stuck it in there, buddy.
That'd be good. Many moons ago, in like the first, never mind. Who cares?
What destinations don't you use on Libsyn? YouTube.
I don't use YouTube.
Why?
Because I will when I make my new audio fake video only version of YouTube channel.
Okay, so you want to have the channel, which is smart. I think that's an important takeaway, right? If you do want to do that, it should have its own channel.
But other than that, I send things to LinkedIn. I send things to everywhere. I mean, why anything that doesn't cost me any money and doesn't cost me any time and maybe will bring me one more viewer? Why would I not do that?
When are you going to start your own TikTok and start dancing and lip syncing and doing all of that? That's what I want to know. That's the real question here.
No, the real
Dave
question.
Jackson on TikTok.
The real question is when
that'd be
Andrew
hilarious.
use TikTok, because that brown hat you see on his head looks pretty tinfoil covered to me. There's no TikTok is anyways. That's a current event humor.
No, I'm not going on
No?
TikTok.
I know you're
no way.
not. You're not even
No
on
way.
Instagram, man. It drives me crazy. I share stuff all the time. I'm like, Bandrew would love this. He's not doing it.
Yeah, I'm too paranoid. I stopped using Facebook as well.
I just
Because of exactly what you were just talking about, the reaching 1% of your audience, and if you want to reach them, you have to pay it.
You don't.
Yeah.
It is pay to play at Facebook. Like, I don't. We learned that Facebook inflated all their numbers on video anyways, and people killed their YouTube channels to go to Facebook and lost. You know, like College Humor basically got decimated, I believe. Dave, what were you gonna say?
Well, just speaking of being creepy. So on one hand, you don't get much reach, and then B, at the same conference, they showed us how to do a Facebook ad and how you can say, give this to people named George living in Poughkeepsie only on Thursday if they're Republican with an iPhone 6 version. I mean, it was insane, the number, the information. All those times, like, what's your favorite superhero? You're just, here's more information about me, Facebook, so that now you can target me, which is great if you want to buy an ad on Facebook. But it was very creepy on just how much information.
It happened on YouTube too. I think if you watch a video on YouTube, they got you. Like, you can't be online pretty much. You pretty much need to.
That's it.
Go off the grid.
Going back to my flip
write
phone.
a manifesto, which Dave, I expect you to write a manifesto at some point. I really do.
I'll be the first reader, please.
Look, you got a sub via YouTube. Just
That's
saying. Just saying. Oh man. All right. That's probably close to silliness. But who's going to, Daniel, are you going to put the Audacity to Podcast into a YouTube destination? Yeah.
Probably not,
Why not?
because my audience is smarter than that.
That's an audience you don't, but it's an audience you're not talking to your audience, right? If you're putting it to YouTube, you're not preaching to the choir. You're looking for new preachy people, like people to preach to. What are those, parishioners? What do you call that?
My audience is podcasters and or people interested in podcasting.
You think?
Well, if they're not interested in podcasting.
Daniel, we were just talking about how YouTubers are trying to get into podcasting, how there was a gold rush.
Right.
That's your audience. Upload YouTube videos covering how to get into podcasting with the level of detail that you do.
I still, why wouldn't you though? Like as Dave's saying, like it costs you nothing if you're on like Libsyn and no extra time. Why not?
Well, okay, Ray, you're saying fake video. I think Bandrew, you're saying real video.
Well,
yes, correct.
Yeah. Them both.
Real video, yes, I would do and do.
Okay. I was misunderstanding.
Yeah. But yeah, so I would certainly make videos for YouTube that would target people interested in learning how to podcast. Someday I'm going to have a free, probably free how to podcast course. So it can be among those that Dave references when he says you could watch some free videos on YouTube or you can buy his product. But I don't think it's worth it to me for the kind of audience that I want to reach.
You think it hurts your credibility in some way? Something's going on.
In some way, yeah.
Yeah, you're beating around the bush, but you're just saying this makes me look bad.
Yeah,
I'm not doing it, but I actually don't even know the reason why I wouldn't do it. To be honest with you, I don't have a reason to not do a Libsyn destination to a new YouTube channel. I mean, Addy, that's what you're doing, right? You have your audio only show, and Jen, that's what you're doing, right?
If I tried it, it would be only an experiment.
Right, because you don't believe in it. You don't want
Addy, I interrupted.
It's okay. I was just going to say, in addition to pushing out like this daily podcast that's releasing soon, I am going to push the audio to YouTube. But in addition to that, do what we would all do for different platforms, is cater to the platform. So I'll create a separate video to encourage the conversation of what I'm talking about in that episode. And the call to action is to go click the link in the description to subscribe to the podcast for more deeper information, because I'm going to use YouTube as like the surface level of channel and then podcasting to go deeper.
Jen, do you see yourself using YouTube differently outside of the audio only to YouTube?
I mean, I also have tutorial videos, like podcasting tutorial videos on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is kind of just a hodgepodge of things. I haven't been super intentional with how I've used it in the past, other than it's a place to just house a lot of different things that I'm creating. And it's great that, if I have clients that are interested in podcasting and I can say, hey, I just made a video on that, and just send them to the YouTube channel. It's very easy for me to use it that way too. So I guess I'm using it kind of in a bunch of different ways. And maybe technically I should have different channels set up for different things, but I've just published it there and used it to house everything up to this point.
I think that works. Easy. Yeah, I think that works until you find your thing. Like that's how my YouTube channel started. I just threw a video up there. I wasn't trying, and then one video went essentially what I would call viral, and it was the signal that people wanted that thing. So I focused it then. But I say in the beginning, like, go for it. Like, put stuff up, see what sticks. Right? Is throw against the wall type thing, and see what sticks. And then maybe when you find it, consider focusing. That's not as easy to do on a podcast. YouTube does lend itself to that browse, to that discovery, to the search, right? People are searching there. I don't know how many people are searching inside of podcast apps. I mean, they are apparently, but it is very different. Videos also very easy to sample. I've talked about this in the past, whereas podcasts don't feel easy to sample, but a YouTube video, if it's not the thumbnail that I almost can tell what the whole video is about. I can't tell that from a podcast title. I can, but I got to listen to 3 minutes about, what they had for lunch, old Twitter jokes, but it's just easy to sample quick YouTube videos. But related to that, I forgot my answer or what I was going to say, but YouTube is like, find what sticks and then maybe drill down into that. It's also very nice that unlike podcasts, you don't know what the potential audience is for your show, right? So make a podcast about podcasting. Join us over here. It's great. You have no idea how many subscribers Daniel has or Dave has or I have unless we tell you. On YouTube, maybe you're doing what? Camera reviews, Nikon camera reviews. There's a channel for that. And guess what? They have 1 million subs, right? So instantly, whoa, there's an audience for this. And I only have 100 subs, but it's got to be something I'm doing. I can grow into that market. Podcast, you never get that signal. You just sort of talk into the mic and hope people subscribe. And you have no idea, like, how many people listen to podcasts about podcasting. I don't know. No one's ever told me, right? So I always find that interesting too. YouTube definitely. What's up, Dave?
Well, I would just say if I wanted to get into both, we were talking earlier a little bit about repurposing. You could record a video, have the audio, and when you're done, even if you didn't record the audio separately, you can pull the audio out of a YouTube clip. Granted, it's going to have that awesome quality of that compression from that only YouTube can provide, but you could easily strip the audio out of a YouTube video and throw it up on your media host and go to town. As long as you're not going, you'll see here in the bottom right-hand corner that this, like you can't do a cooking show and put it out as an audio podcast, but you could go vice versa.
You could. You're just going to have the same retention rate if you put that audio podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, you're not going to get a new audience because you're Joe Rogan. Although Joe does the clip thing, but you're just going to be hopefully found by the awesome Apple algorithm that doesn't really work either. So that would be that way you got both bases covered. If you want to listen to me, I'm here. If you want to watch me, I'm over there.
I think in the chat, Baines has a good point. He said, YouTube is trivial to share. Podcasts are hard.
Ooh, that's what I remembered. Yeah, go ahead. That's good.
And I think that it's the nature of the media. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you can't share a movie, but you can share about a movie. You can share an experience, or there are clips of movies online, but those are, a movie is very visual. A book, you spread a book around, or you tell people, oh man, I've been reading this great book. You got to read this book. That's the same thing with podcasts they're not really, they can't really be viral, but they are still shareable by people telling other people, you gotta listen to this podcast.
I mean, what's interesting, at least of what's going to happen, is where does Google Play come into all of this, right? So Google is the #1 search engine, YouTube's the second. Is the third one really going to be Google Podcasts in the very near future? I think that's going to be the exciting thing to keep an eye on for the next couple. I would say 2 years, 3 years. Let's see what happens.
Especially if you do single topic focused episodes, or at least if your most popular topic is in the title of your episode, that's really going to help you show up well in Google.
Yeah. Daniel, you reminded me of something before I ran away. I ran away audio only audience, but I'm back. They never knew. Advantage audio podcast. Of those who have videos, who make videos that sort of complement, like I might do a microphone review on YouTube, and I might also do it on my audio podcast. If you have videos and audio like that, which are you more likely to share? I'm going to share the video. Like, I'm talking about social, right? Like, I'm more apt to share video. Why? I mean, anyone else?
I share video because in the feeds, it's much more, it pops out more. Mm-hmm. If there's a moving image, if there's somebody waving their arms about screaming about microphones, or somebody waving their arms about screaming about a movie, and somebody scrolling past a bunch of text, what's going to pop out to them? That really quick moving image of the person talking. So I'm going to share that because that will stand out to people much more in a feed full of static images or just text.
See, I may be different because I use Overcast for my podcast. I love the fact that Overcast lets me share at the current timeline. So I'll hit back up, hit pause, and then say share there. That way people can click on that. It takes them, even if you don't use Overcast, it'll take you over to the Overcast page where they can hear exactly where I was. And the cool thing about Overcast is they actually have subscribe buttons right underneath that player. So
certainly Apple's going to do that, because now we can go to a landing page on the web right, for your podcast. You can share it, but you can't get to that exact moment that the reason I'm sharing. And very important on a podcast, because that's the thing you don't want to do. I don't hit play. I don't want to get through your intro and your introductions.
Yeah.
And the weather and your cat.
And the toast.
Toast. Well, I like to listen to toast.
Well, that's where podcasters should really learn this from YouTubers. I think YouTubers figured this out. The majority of YouTubers figured this out before the majority of podcasters have or are. And that is, get your primary content out there quickly. Tease them with something. Jump in as quickly as possible. Like, inspired by YouTube, I cut my audio branding down from however long it was before. I think maybe music only section was maybe 15 seconds plus some background to something I said. Now my audio, my opening music, all that you hear is a 6-second bit. I don't think it's even that long before you hear me speak, after I've already given a teaser. So podcasters can benefit from doing that same thing, so that people, aren't thinking, well, when I press play, I'm going to hear a bunch of ads first and then the chit chat and such, but jumping right in. I love how YouTubers do that.
Yeah, YouTuber made me a better content creator, because I actually get to the point, and people thank you for that in the comments.
And people will be brutally honest if you don't.
Yes. If we think people who listen to podcasts are sick of a 2-minute intro, try doing it on YouTube.
Yeah, you
will
can't
get
do
that
it on YouTube.
beaten out of you in a week.
And that's the key, though. But when you go to a podcast, you settle in. You're ready. It's intentional. Whereas YouTube tends to be something you stumbled upon, or even if you're browsing. Like, I got another video right here I want to watch. So tell me what you're going to tell me, or I'm out. Right? Podcast, you're like, you kind of know what you're in for. I'm like, I'm going to settle in. There's going to be some music, maybe an ad. I got a 30-second skip button. I'm ready. I got a half hour to get to work anyways.
There's still times that I've shut off podcasts and unsubscribed to them, because every week they'll take 5 or 10 minutes to get to the actual content. Yes, I do have a fast forward button, but that tells me that they don't care about my time. They're just BSing for 10 minutes about something that has nothing to do with the content of the episode. Well, they don't care about me. So, see ya.
I'm sorry, Bandrew.
Bandrew needs a hug. Can we virtually hug?
Dave, it wasn't you.
It wasn't you. It was Dave. Dave has like 100 shows, so you can unsubscribe to like 5 of them.
You still listen to 95 of them, yeah. No, I think that's a great point. I think, I heard one the other day, and I'm not making this up. Somebody went to the mall, put their phone on a table, and while they were eating pizza, discussed, what should we talk about on the show?
That was Bandrew.
And then they actually said, and then they actually said, okay, good. And they're like, it's good to see you, man. I'm like, hey, that whole conversation you just had while you're smacking and chewing, there's this thing called editing that you could have done, but they were using a free service that uses
now we see what's going on.
You do on their phone. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So that's not going to work anymore. That's just not.
Got an agenda.
Exactly what a shill would say.
Yeah. They sure would, Bandrew. They sure would.
Curse you.
Yeah, that's it.
We need a t-shirt.
Inside humor.
Yeah.
This shirt can say something like
shill. Just
or just
big word.
I say what exactly a shill would say.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
As Bandrew holds his multiple microphones.
2 SM7Bs, not multiple.
Right.
I mean, like, I could hold up 2 ATR 2100s and I'd be like, ooh, fancy. And people are like, no, you're just poor, dude. And he holds up 2 $400 microphones, which he could actually assault you with. I think they're actually for defending his home, not the second one. That's what it's for.
Now, come on. The SM7B is not a good defensible microphone.
Dave has
defending microphone.
No, that would be the pod mic.
The pod mic and the BP40 are better microphones. If you're
Dave, isn't that a BP40 in front of you?
No, this is an RE320.
Oh, sorry.
That one's pretty good. But I mean, if you really want to take someone out,
I made a joke today on Twitter. Podchaser tweeted, like, describe your podcast to a 5-year-old. And I said, we talk into microphones about microphones. And it happened. It came true. Look at, see, Addy's got a pod.
Addy's got it.
Jen, what are you talking on? Because you do sound good. Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
I'm going to go with Q2U.
Q2U.
Oh, bam! Winner.
What does he win?
Ring that- I ran a subscriber. Ring the bell. Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, so that's cool. We have all levels. Addy, are you on the SM7B too?
Yeah, this is the S7B.
Bunch of shills. It says, I just took the pod mic off and put this on because I use this is actually the post show. We've gone into the post show. I did not hit in broadcast. This is the stuff that happens.
And
Bandrew
for
did a-
all of the patrons, this
yeah,
is
this is
free
for the
content.
patron part.
Right.
Subscribe at patreon.com/we don't have a site. That's somebody's site, by the way. Dave, get that domain for us, bud. All right, let's get out of here. Let's actually go to the post show. If you are not signed up, podcastersroundtable.com/guest, you cannot join us and be in the post show. Sometimes the post show goes longer than the actual episode, and Dave shares stuff he can't say live. So get in here. I promise you, it's totally worth it. All the insider information. We're on fire. All right, let's go out. Tell us where we can find your podcast or your YouTube channel. You get one. You can choose the URL of your choice. If you're smart, I can get both things at the same URL. Jen, thanks for your first roundtable. Really appreciate it. I know super short notice, and hopefully you didn't cancel like birthday plans.
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Great to be here.
And where should we go? Where should we go to find what you want us to find?
I'm going to say go to my YouTube channel, Jen Edds, EDDS Brassy. You can find all the stuff there.
All the stuff.
All the stuff.
Awesome. All right. And then when you go there, then you can then send people somewhere else.
Exactly.
We got to move people around. That's what we hear. That's the way to go, apparently. That is hard to do. Bandrew knows. Bandrew, thanks, man.
Thank you for having me. Always fun talking to everybody here and yelling about YouTube at people. You can find all of my stuff at bandrewscott.com. Links to everything.
Interesting. Not where I'm not sure that's what I would have typed in to find you. In fact,
Okay, podcastage.com.
no, you can't do that. You're breaking the rules. I mean, I can say it for you. Cheating. Well, that was your final roundtable. Glad you joined us. Andrew actually Bandrew doesn't want me to ask him back. Okay. So it's very hard to get him on the show. I know what you're doing and it's not going to work. Addy, thanks so much for joining us again.
Yeah, it's great. It was fun to be here. Just go to thepodcastplanner.com and follow me on your platform.
Question. Do you also have podcastplanner.com?
No.
Okay,
That somebody was squatting on the domain and they want like a lot of money out of it. So
I'm also a the guy. Like I have a the podcaster studio. I was able to then much later, probably too late. Someone should have grabbed it. I also grabbed podcaster studio, and I consider dropping the because who wants to enter more characters? So it's always interesting. That's a tip. If you guys, if it's available, obviously Addy, it wasn't available, so that can be tough. The podcast planner. And that is actually, I mean, that's like to the point, right? That is something that helps me plan my podcast. Is that what's going on?
yes, absolutely. It's a workbook. It's not a textbook. I want you to get to work on your podcast.
I can draw in my book, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I can write in my book. I won't get in trouble. Dave Jackson, co-host extraordinaire. Thank you for, earning your money, bud.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to throw a curveball because Addy, what's it called? Napod, Alpo, Mopo. What's the thing? What's it?
Napod Pomo.
For you to say.
Napod Pomo.
Spell that
words.
one.
I'm going to be doing that on my Building a Better Dave show. So you can find that at betterdave.com. Starting off with a document from my great-grandfather who apparently was a podcaster. He just did it at a typewriter. And I found this document from my great-grandfather, which I will be reading. So if that doesn't put you to sleep, nothing will, but that's what that show is for. It's me talking about anything I want to, and you get to listen to it. So
You could have the makings of the next Karen and Ellen Letters podcast.
There you go. So find that at betterdave.com.
Spell, Addy, what is that thing that Dave can't say?
So it's National Podcast Post Month, where every day for the month of November, you post a new episode daily.
Who's doing that?
I'm doing that.
And Addy's doing it. Bandrew's doing it.
Cool.
They're going to be very short. Very short.
And that's so the domain for this very confusing acronym is NAMO pod or something.
N NAPODPOMO.com. Yeah.
Subscribe. Awesome. Cool. Check it out. I mean, it might be something you want to do if you're listening to this. Get in
For
there.
anyone studying marketing, this is name
Right.
your whatever it is, you should name it something people can say and spell.
Yep.
All right, Daniel J. Lewis, co-host. Thank you. Thanks for joining us for sure.
Thank you. I'm over at theaudacitytopodcast.com. New episodes are coming out. I've already published a new episode. The show is officially back, so you can go over there, check out new episodes. And while we're talking about the stuff with YouTube and things, I'm going to someday share some very interesting data about my subscription buttons and which one gets clicked the most. You'll be surprised which one gets clicked most over at theaudacitytopodcast.com.
Good tease, because I'm interested. All right. I'm subbed, I think, so I don't have to worry about it. I'll get it. All right. Well, if I check more than one show in my podcast app, I'll get it. So podcastersroundtable.com/guests. Sign up, bring you onto the roundtable, and we'll just let you sit there while I talk. It's a lot of fun. And we'll see you next time. Wave goodbye. I should probably stop waving goodbye. I can't actually break Google anymore. Maybe I could break StreamYard. Oh, yeah, it's new. Everyone wave like really vigorously. It's not working. It's working in the broadcast. End it. Just go. Stop.